So there I was, pretty much ready to call my pick of the best budget smartphone of 2020 to the Poco X3 NFC, but then just at the death of the year along comes this colourful wee blighter, the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite. And it may be light in name, but it's definitely not light in nature, as you still get surprisingly premium features here like a 120Hz display, same as that Poco X3, along with the Snapdragon 750G chipset, 5G support and a 64 megapixel primary camera. And it's definitely not light in terms of weight either, this is a proper hefty bugger. And yes, admittedly that is coming from a weak as dolphin piss skinny arse with less meat on his arms than the average chicken nugget. But seriously, this smartphone is heavier than pretty much every other device out there from 2020, even mega beasts like Samsung's Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. So the question is, should bros who don't even lift even consider snaffling this handset? Well, I've been using the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite as my full-time smartphone for about a week now, and here's my in-depth review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now first of all, let's just take a moment and drink in this absolute masterpiece of an arse. The Mi 10T Lite has got serious back in this rose gold bleach model. I mean seriously, it's like a big warm hug for the soul on those miserable days where I just feel like curling up in a ball in the shower and crying into my bottle of Grey Goose. And sure, that tropical soft drink style design won't be for everyone, in which case there are a couple more sober colours also on offer. But no matter which colour option you go for, you get that same gorgeous frosted glass finish, which basically feels like you're rubbing your fingertips all over a giant pearl. And yeah, that's not exactly fantastic as far as grip is concerned, but the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite certainly feels great in the hand. You've got a Gorilla Glass 5 coating around back as well as covering that display, so no worries if you're a bit of a butterfingers either. After week 1, the Mi 10T Lite still looks box fresh, while that frosted finish rarely shows any finger grease or smudges. So basically, beyond the fact that this absolute unit is so big and heavy and kind of cumbersome to use one-handed, my only real complaint as far as the design is concerned is that jutting camera lens, which means if you do lie the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite flat on its back, it does wobble about the place when you're actually trying to use it. As always though, it's very welcome to see an edge-mounted fingerprint sensor, and I felt that this worked perfectly here on the Mi 10T Lite, with just as dependable face recognition and backup when required. On the software tip, well, as usual, it's Xiaomi's MIUI 12 launcher smothered there on top of Android 10, unfortunately not the fresh new Android 11. Here's hoping for an update soon. The MIUI 12 thankfully brought in a full-time apps tray for a more Android-esque feel, while also adding that funky iOS-style control center that you can access with a single swipe. Definitely a big fan. And it brings a lot of other changes to Google's OS as well, but if you want a closer look at all of that shenanigans, then definitely go check out my full MIUI 12 video, which is live right now. And I know that a lot of people are concerned about pop-up ads on MIUI, but once again, as usual here on Xiaomi's Mi 10T Lite, they are very few and far between. I only saw a couple of ads, basically occasionally when I installed an app or when I was using Xiaomi's own apps, and that is it. And if that bothers you, you can turn off personalized ads and you can disable the majority of them anyway, but as I say, in a week of use I literally saw about 3, maybe 4 ads. However, what I did see in my time with the Mi 10T Lite was a couple of weird little bugs. So for instance, when I first started using the phone, the Messenger app wouldn't actually update in the background. I'd have to open up the app and then new messages would trickle through. Thankfully though, once I fiddled about in the app settings and cleared the cache, it started working absolutely fine. The only other bug that I can remember was an inexplicable ability to get rid of pinned live sports scores. The little buggers were just impossible to swipe away. In fact, it almost became a kind of game to see if I could swipe it fast enough to get rid of it, or try swiping it from different angles. None of it of course worked. Thankfully you can still dismiss them just by tapping on them and then going into the menu right there. And those couple of funny little quirks aside, the Mi 10T Lite was generally well behaved. Google Pay worked a charm here in the UK, while I had no issues with connectivity over the Wi-Fi either. And yes, you do have full 5G support thanks to the X52 modem, although sadly I got next to no chance to test this out thanks to lockdown shenanigans. Thankfully that has come to an end for a short while at least, so I'm hoping to get out and about with the Mi 10T Lite and test that out in full, so stay tuned for an update. And no worries if you like downloading shed loads of apps onto your smartphone, because you've got a choice of 64 or 128 gigs of internal storage, and you can boost that with a micro SD memory card by sticking it into that second SIM slot. And of course, another benefit of having such a massive bloody phone is that you get a massive bloody screen to watch stuff on. A 6.67 inch IPS beast to be absolutely precise. Despite its gargantuan size, visuals are kept sharp by the Full HD Plus resolution. Colour temperature and saturation levels can be automatically adjusted by the Mi 10T Lite based on the ambient conditions for an easy on the eye experience. I personally prefer when the selfie cam is nudged away in the corner of a screen rather than bang centre, but in practice I found that lens orifice was tiny enough to just barely intrude at all. Plus that screen is properly pop your eyeballs bright when you boost it up to those top levels. You'll definitely have no troubles whatsoever seeing what you're trying to do even on a bright sunshiny day, which might happen again in about 7 months time here. And that 120Hz refresh rate, which is now surprisingly common for more budget-friendly phones, is more candy for the soul. So basically, the front end of the Mi 10T Lite definitely pleases just as much as that back end. And Xiaomi's phone also boasts a stereo speaker setup, although yes, that earpiece is typically tinny, but on top volume, you're definitely good to go even in quite a noisy household. I had absolutely zero issues streaming music, podcasts, whatever, to a speaker or a pair of headphones, as long as you don't stray too far away because the range ain't exactly great, but as long as you don't move further than a room away from whatever speaker you're streaming to, you're generally fine. And yes, like most of the budget smartphones these days, you do still thankfully get that headphone jack, praise be. Now performance here comes courtesy of Qualcomm's Snapdragon 750G chipset backed by a healthy 6GB of RAM. And while the Mi 10T Lite does handle everyday existence rather well, I did see the occasional little jitter here and there, probably a result of that rather heavy launcher. So for instance, swapping between apps, sometimes there might be a bit of a pause, or if you've been snapping away with the camera and you tap that little preview pane just to check out your photos, you might be waiting 2 or 3 seconds for it to load up. But certainly nothing horrendous, and thankfully I didn't see any of my apps crashing or anything like that. And gamers, rest easy, because you will get a reliable experience from the Mi 10T Lite, helped along by that capable Adreno 619 GPU. Call of Duty can be maxed out at the high detail levels with a high frame rate, and I found that was nice and strong and stable. I got a nice fluid experience, something that certainly helped along by that 240Hz touch sampling rate when you're using touchscreen controls. And you've also got all those great game turbo features as well that are built into MIUI, including notifications blocking and background app management. Now many budget smartphones these days have a mighty 5000 mAh battery packed inside, and some even go beyond that. The likes of the Moto G9 Power and the Poco M3 for instance have a 6000 mAh cell stuffed inside. Here on the Mi 10T Lite it actually swings slightly the other way with a 4820 mAh cell, despite the fact that it's roughly the size of Ben Nevis. But the good news is I still found that with roughly 5 hours a day screen on time and not crazy use, so we're talking a bit of light media streaming, plenty of messaging, things like that, you'll still get around 2 days of use out of this thing. And even if you're rarely bloody off the thing, playing a good bit of Call of Duty, doing a good bit of video recording with the camera, all that kind of stuff, you should still get a full day of use out of it without too much of a struggle. And if you do need a top up, the 33-watt fast charging will get you on the move again in a jiffy. Now for the camera tech, I found that the Mi 10T Lite wasn't quite as strong as the Poco X3 in this area, but that 64 megapixel primary shooter using Sony's IMX682 sensor is still capable as long as conditions aren't too taxing. At that default 16 meg resolution, detail levels are often strong enough to make a photo look good when you chuck it up on a telly screen, as long as you weren't battling strong light, in which case the results can be quite murky. And the shutter isn't quite fast enough to deal with quick moving subjects either, with blur quite a common occurrence. But if your subject can keep still for 2 bloody seconds, the portrait mode often serves up good looking pics. Indoor shots and low light snaps often look quite soft and grainy, a typical curse at this price point, but at least the colours don't look unnatural. In fact, overall, colour reproduction is pleasingly natural. And when things get proper dark, the night mode does a little to help balance things out and sharpen up the image, but I really do mean a little. The Mi 10T Lite also packs in an 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens, which delivers pretty standard results. It works well in good daylight and not so much at other times. And yes, the obligatory 2 megapixel macro lens brings the total number up to 4 if you also include that 2 megapixel depth sensor, and as usual the macro lens is a complete waste of glass. Switch to video mode and it's basically the same story. If the lighting is on your side, you'll get fine looking footage with reasonably clear audio pickup too, but you'll definitely want to keep as still as possible as well, because there's basically no image stabilization to speak of, and in low light, well, just forget it. The Mi 10T Lite's 16 megapixel selfie shooter again struggles with harsh or low light, but produces good looking if slightly smooth results otherwise. Again though, indoor snaps do look very soft indeed, so you'll need to make sure that you're well lit. So that right there is my full and frank review of Xiaomi's Mi 10T Lite budget smartphone after using it as my full-time blower for a week. And I gotta say, camera tech aside, I really enjoyed it. There's no denying that it's an absolute bargain. If you want to jump on that 5G bandwagon for not too much cash, then definitely it is one of the better choices out there. Boasts many of the same benefits that the Poco X3 offered up, like a gorgeous 120Hz display and strong gaming performance as well. But I gotta say though, that X3 camera tech did seem to handle a range of conditions better than the Mi 10T Lite did. So if camera is one of your top priorities, I'd say probably go X3 instead. But anyway, that's what I think. It would be great to hear your own thoughts if you've been using the Mi 10T Lite as your personal smartphone as well. Please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell. Stay tuned for more best budget smartphones of 2020 roundup as well. I'm hoping to do my best sub £200 one very shortly indeed. And please do have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.